Hey guys, it's Brian back for another Disc Golf Examiner course review. Today we're at North Boundary Park and we're going to play the back nine. You may have remembered last time we did one of these. We did the front nine of this course, but it's one of the largest courses in the world. So we had to come out here again with some local pros, and these are the best players in Pittsburgh, right guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. To my left, we have Chris Lahendro. And to my right, we have Cody Winget and Vinny Montanari. And we're gonna go ahead and play this course. What's really cool is that you have Cody here, who's primarily a right-hand backhand player. Vinny is primarily a left-hand backhand player. And Chris is primarily a sidearm player. So we have a lot of good variety here. Hope you guys enjoy. Leave a comment, let us know what you think. And of course, whenever we do a course review, we like to talk with the course designers. To my left, we have Dropcho, the course designer, and to my right, we have Doug Cloutier. Doug, what's your title here?
Well, I'm co-course designer, but I am the course promoter.
And we're going to talk to both of you about how this course was designed and get kind of a breakdown that way. So let's go ahead and get to it.
One of the things that we wanted to incorporate in this facility is a warm-up or a practice area. And there are two practice baskets that are located between hole 10's tee pad and hole 1's tee area. There's also an open area for throwing some mid-range kind of shots, but you could play between the two baskets to practice your approaches. Obviously you can putt to warm up, and it's far enough away from hole 1 so that if there's a tournament going on, that the warm-up should not interfere with the players on the course.
I want to mention that on the tee signs there are pin indicators which tell you what basket placement the pin is in. And just looking at this hole, it's from a lot of these tees you can't see the basket. This is a par 4, so on the tee you're able to know what placement the basket is in.
There's also the distance and elevation change between the tee and the pin placement, so you know how far up you're going or how far down you're going. Each hole has obviously 3 different tee pads. We're standing on the gold level, the 1000 rated tee pad, but there's also a blue level, which is sort of advanced, and then there's a white level, which is an intermediate level tee pad on each hole. But there's also 3 pin positions for the basket on each hole. So the basket can be moved for tournament play or to keep the course fresh and interesting for players that play here all the time. Some of the pins are a little farther, the angles are different on the approach, so it can really kind of change maybe where you want to land your tee shot or from what angle you want to approach to, depending on where the basket is. Hole 10's a par 4. It's 600 feet approximately from the gold tee to all 3 of the pins. It plays up on a ridge and then sort of back down into a ravine and then back up again to the green or the basket areas. I think the strategy here, the higher risk and higher reward line from this gold tee is to the left-hand side of the 3 big trees that form a gate off this shot. The safer shot is to the right, although there is a low limb that you have to get underneath it. But if you get through both of these big trees and negotiate a smaller group of trees up to the top of the ridge, then you're set up for a more open approach shot to the basket.
Yeah, this hole starts out in the open here and immediately enters the woods from this gold tee. The blue and the white tees start in the woods. This area originally was I think a pig farm or some type of animal was here. So there was actually a wallow in the middle of this hole, and this hole also gets pretty wet. But like Jay Gary says, it kind of has a rolling hill layout to it.
Hole 10, it's very important to get to the top of the hill on your tee shot. Otherwise, you're going to be limping up the fairway the whole way because you don't have a clean line.
I would say on hole 10, you really want to keep it in the fairway, left side or right side. Off the drive is pretty much guaranteed, probably bogey or worse. So definitely keep it in the middle, and the upshot's definitely pretty tough.
Well, here we are on hole 11, the gold tee for 11. This par 5 is 855 feet to the C pin. It's about 26 feet of elevation gain. Most of that comes into play on the approach to the basket. Although the first shot is slightly uphill, and it's a tunnel where with a kind of restricted ceiling as well. It requires a really straight placement shot to get yourself up to where the sun is shining up there in the fairway. If you get your shot there, you're set up well for a second fairway shot to make a third shot approaching the basket, and if you've done those 3 very well, you'll have a chance at a birdie.
Yeah, this is another long par 5 on the course that goes up and down over valleys and hills, of course. Unlike hole 6, which was on the previous video.
That's a downhill par 5.
That one's downhill, this is uphill. But like that one, this one goes across 2 ravines from the gold tee pad. And instead of going across the first ravine from the blue and whites, you skip that ravine. But from the gold tees, you have to go that first shot across this ravine, and then it dog legs left.
About 90 degrees, actually.
Yeah.
And if you are left here, if you hit a tree and go left, you're jailed, and you're taking at least a stroke to get yourself back into position.
Yeah, there is no cutting the corner here.
This hole has one of the stone basket structures that we built. We'll see that going up the hill. That at least frames the basket.
I think hole number 11 might be the most demanding par 5 I've ever played. It's probably my favorite hole on the course. Has a great rock feature right around the basket. Placement's key, like a lot of the holes down here in North Boundary, but overall, you know, there's 2 gaps after the initial fairway shot that you can go down the left or right, and you know, pick and choose your poison.
You need to get across the initial gap so that you have any chance to run down the main fairway. I think the left gap ends up being more open if you're a lefty or a forehander, as I took that lower gap and it worked out pretty decently. And then it's long, which is what a par 5 should be.
Cody pretty much nailed it on the head. You just have to hit that initial gap, and then from there, it's almost like a scramble 600 feet to the basket. Par is definitely a really good score on that hole.
From the trail, the nature trail, looking back down towards the basket, it's a kind of a natural amphitheater, sort of a bowl. So from that trail, you can see all of the pin positions and the players as they make their way up the fairway and as they're putting as well.
We designed a lot of these holes with spectators in mind. This amphitheater area for this green kind of lends to that. You could have spectators on the trail above the green watching shots come into the green, and then watching the tee shots on a couple of the other holes, 12 and 16 as well, just by turning around.
So after playing the uphill par 5, we thought we'd give players a little respite, and so you've got a downhill par 3 here, hole 12. Basket's currently in A pin position. It's 266 feet and about 55 feet of elevation change from here down to the basket. It's multiple lines to the tee or to the basket, none of which are really big, but it's much more open than it was when we started. I don't know how many trees and woody shrubs were taken out of here, quite a bit. I guess really the 2 challenges are the lines through the trees, and if you overshoot the basket, then the fairway drops away behind the basket pretty dramatically.
Hole number 12 is, you know, pretty straightforward, right turning hole. It's definitely one of the holes on the course that you want to try and get a 2 on, as it's one of the shorter holes. You know, you just kind of let it hyzer out if you're throwing a forehand. There's a tight backhand turnover line, but either way, you know, you have a chance at a birdie.
12 is similar to Plinko, but slightly easier.
All right, here we are on hole 13, which is another short par 3. Kind of continues the break you get after some long holes.
This may be one of the shortest holes on the course.
I think it might be. It's definitely one of the shortest holes. It's also fairly flat. From this hole, it's 285 feet with an elevation loss of about 12 feet. So it's pretty flat. You're throwing across a ravine, but up to a flat area for the green. And We're on the back side of the hill here, so the vegetation is a little different. There's more of a canopy and less underbrush here.
Yeah, I remember this area is just sort of suggesting itself. Looked at the topographical map and saw the contours and saw there was sort of a flat area here, and then throwing over the valley to another flat area, and then behind the baskets it drops off again. It just seemed like a fun shot. And from the gold tees, for a right-handed player, it's probably a forehand to where the pin is now, and you'll notice the pin is another one of the stone structures that we built. This is sort of the cylindrical pillar. From the middle tees, it's more of a straight shot, and then the shortest tee is there's actually a kind of a hyzer line from that tee.
But from this gold tee, there's actually a hyzer route here as well, another option that players can take depending on where the basket is. That might come into play more when it's in B-pin.
Hole 13 is definitely one of the birdie holes on the course. It sets up good for right-hand forehand or left-hand backhand. You either go in the inside gap and come up probably 20 feet short of the basket like what Chris did, or you can go out around the outside, but you have to watch out for going long because it kind of drops off behind the basket.
I definitely think it's one of the best holes on the course.
13 has one of the nicest raised baskets I've seen. The inside forehand gap is definitely the easier one to hit because it's not as much power as forcing the outside line and trying to cut in and stop before the rest of the hill takes you away. It's a fun hole.
All right, here we are on hole 14, which is a par 4. The basket is in A-pin, which is 543 feet away. It is up 18 foot in elevation, but as you can see, yet again, we go across another ravine. I think that it was kind of similar, our design for this hole to the last one, in which we wanted to go from one flat spot to another flat spot across a ravine. And actually, when this hole is in C-pin, it crosses yet another much smaller ravine, but it actually makes its way out to the grass.
And I think what players are trying to do is get themselves definitely go across the ravine and as high up on the second part of the fairway as they can. There is a lower fairway which is much more accessible from the short tee, which gets you the same spot, but it's lower, so you've got more to climb to get to there. Like you were saying, this part of the park has some old growth oak trees, a lot of them, and it has pretty high canopy. So there's a pretty high ceiling. That shouldn't be the issue. It's just keeping it on the line that you want.
Yeah, the near side of the ravine kind of has a more gentle slope down to it, but on the far side it's much steeper. So you're kind of throwing into a quite steep hill on the far side of the ravine if you get your drive across. And then it's kind of a climb up to a flatter area where the basket is on the top of the hill.
Hole 14 is a pretty challenging par 4. I would say that the right center gap is pretty much the only gap. Yeah, there's lots of trees to navigate, and 4 is definitely a good score.
As you can see by Vinny's drive, that's how you play the hole. Sets up for an easy birdie. There's definitely a clear defined center fairway, and if you follow that, you're going to be in good shape. You get off the fairway a little bit, you could be playing a little bit of plinko.
Hole 14 is a fair par 4. There's room to throw everything. You can mess up a little bit and still have a chance for a birdie. You can't mess up a lot, and the whole fairway does slope off to the left, so some of those ricochets are going to go far.
Well, this is hole 15. It's a par 4. It's a slight dog leg to the right. And where the pin is now, which is A pin, it's 541 feet. It gains 22 feet in elevation, but very gradually, so it's not that steep of a hole. This hole originally was completely covered in briars. You can imagine how much clearing and mowing we had to do for that.
And a lot of grapevine, wild grapevine, a lot of invasive species have been, removed to open the lines, and some big trees and small trees taken out as well. What I like about this hole is it puts a real premium on your tee shot, because if you don't hit the line and get yourself around the dog leg, you really want to shape a shot that goes from left to right to get yourself around the corner and hopefully up the beginning part of the rise to the green. If you don't get all the way around that, you're going to require an extra shot, and you'd be playing for par as opposed to have a chance at a birdie.
This hole plays along the bottom of the back side of the slope of the hill. So it's the fairway also slopes from left to right. But I like when we first cleared this hole, it was pretty much vine alley. There are so many vines hanging on this hole.
15 is a great in the woods hole where you have a fairway to hit, you hit it, you'll get your birdie. It's that simple.
I think it's definitely one of the more fairways on the course. There's a distinct line. Once you get through that initial gap, it kind of opens up and there's a big tree right in the middle of the fairway. That's kind of your landing point. From there, you either have a forehand or backhand hyzer at the basket.
Hole 15 it definitely rewards a good tee shot. If you can throw something dead straight or even something that finishes right a little bit, you'll have probably a 200 to 300 foot upshot to the basket. So definitely a good birdie hole.
This is hole 16. It's a par 5, and this is the flattest hole on the course. It goes across the top of the ridge.
It's actually downhill. Up to the C-pin, it's 3 feet downhill.
Oh, yeah. Well, it also doesn't, this is one of the few holes that does not cross a ravine. So it,
Play it right.
yeah, if you play it right, on the left side of this fairway, the entire way is the slope down to actually the previous hole, hole 15.
Right. And on the right side of the fairway, it slopes down to where the trail comes up to the top of the hill. So it's sort of a plateau that this hole just runs all the way along the top of the highest part of the park right here.
Right. And this hole does slightly dogleg to the left. It's a par 5, so it's not, you don't need to make that angle all in one shot. You kind of angle the entire way, follow the slope, the left-hand slope of the hill.
The fairway is really wide, but the lines are tight all the way through it. The first shot, the tee shot from here, you have really 2 options. There's a large tree in the middle. It's about 80 feet off the basket, and you've got plenty of room to throw to the right of it. If you throw a right-handed backhand player, may just try to throw a shot with a little bit of turnover and then have it fade a little at the end. Or you could throw from to the left side of this tree. Again, a right-handed backhand player could flex a backhand, or a lefty backhand is probably that's probably what they're loving. They're throwing a hyzer shot on the left side.
In this fairway, there are actually a few number of gates, I like to think of it as, 2 trees that are maybe 10 to 20 feet apart, that you can either go around or go through, and the center of the fairway would be pretty much through them.
So if you can see the 2 trees there that form a V out in the middle, if you put your tee shot through there, you're good. You're liking where you land. Whether it's this tee shot or the middle tee, or even, well, the front tee, I think you actually play to the right of that V a little bit more, but that's the center line.
There's, after your second shot, there's another gate of 2 trees that are about 20 feet apart.
Big oak trees.
Yeah, big oak trees, and that's always the plan to get through those. You can actually see on the tee sign, that's kind of symbolizing that gate.
16's tee shot is very fair but short, so you can't air it out the whole way there. You have to pick your spot and land there. After that, yeah, it gets a bit picky on what you can hit and what you can't hit, but that's what playing in the woods is.
It's definitely pretty lucky of a hole. There's not really too much of a defined fairway, but if you can scramble through the trees and get a 5, it's definitely a good score.
So we're coming home. This is hole 17, final 2 holes of the course. This is another flat hole, at least from the tee to the A pin. The green drops away behind the A pin to the B and the C pin, and it's actually blind to get there from where we are standing now. It's a par 4, 700 feet, a little bit more than 700 feet. When the basket's in the A pin, it's a hole that could be eagled. Somebody could get a 2 on this hole. We can't quite see the basket from where we're standing, but it's one of 2 shots here, Doug. Just a right-hand gap or a left-hand gap.
Yeah, about halfway down the fairway, there's a screen of trees that you have to get through, the line of trees. There are a couple of gaps through there, but you either go to the right or to the left to make it through there. And if you can get your tee shot past that line of trees, you can see there's a flag on top of the basket in the A pin. You can see that basket, but you wouldn't be able to see B or C because those are down the hill.
I think probably the safest route for a righty backhand is to the right side, a flat shot that'll fade at the end. There is a higher risk and shorter route if going to the left, and a righty forehand player or a lefty backhand would probably prefer that route. But the more danger comes into play with the slope, because we're right on the edge of the top of the plateau here. So if you hit a tree or you turn it over too much, the fairway, the rough, drops away really steeply all the way down to where hole 8 runs along the middle of that side of the hill.
Yeah, just like the last hole, you have essentially a cliff along the left-hand side that you're playing along. So this hole really, it doglegs slightly to the left and then back to the right, or you could just try to play it straight. There are more trees that way, but if you're gonna try to get that eagle shot, that's pretty much what you have to do.
Yeah, and I think a birdie here is a good score. I mean, obviously, but this hole could be bogeyed pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, you could,
or double bogeyed.
You could get to the basket in 2 shots, but then trying with the rollaways and everything, you could have a 150-foot rollaway.
Hole 17 is a great par 4. It's a very fair gap off the tee. It's a demanding second shot because if you go too long, you can go over the hill. If you leave yourself short, you have a death putt. So I think overall it's a fun hole.
17 is a very good par 4 with a very open fairway to start. It gets tighter as you go, and then you have a very technical upshot to the basket, which is still not going to be an easy putt depending on where you land.
Hole 17 was a great hole. That was a good example for what happens if you go long on your upshot. You can go way down that hill.
All right, well, this is hole 18. It's the last hole on the course. This is a par 4. We pretty much designed this to be a good finishing hole. It's very much downhill. It is 108 feet downhill to the basket from this tee. It goes down and it doglegs to the left. Not really a shot you need a whole lot of power for, but you need to get the correct amount of turn on the disc to land in the middle of the fairway.
Yeah, I think the strategy that I would recommend is playing a fairway driver, perhaps even a mid-range, to get down to the corner and let the disc do its natural fade left. The fairway really follows a hump of the contour, and so if you stay on the top of the hump, you're in good shape. But if you cut it too much left, you're down in what at one point was a little farm pond. It's kind of a wallow, almost like a swamp right now. Or if you go through the fairway, don't turn enough to make the dog leg, you're off the back side of the hump and you're into some trees that jail you. I know players can throw a high-speed disc and get farther down the hill, but a skip, a flare is going to take you off the top of the hump, which is where you want to be. Set up for a long downhill approach shot across a wetland area to where the basket is located. And so, yeah, we did want a really good finishing hole, something that could make a difference on it. There's a cool old tree stand that's up about 100 feet in the air up at an old oak tree that players can see, and that was a striking feature of when we
it's right in the center of the fairway.
Out of the shot, but it'd be a good place for Brian to set up and film from.
Yeah, the green is on the other side of another lowland area that's actually pretty much a swamp at this point. A creek runs through it, and we hope to one day make that some type of water feature or something that you have to get across before you get to the green.
And that would come into play if you go past the basket and are putting back at the basket.
Yeah, like many greens out here, the green is not flat, so the rollaways are definitely in play, as well as uphill and downhill putts.
Yeah, it's steep. I mean, it's definitely people say, that north boundary is all uphill, but I don't think you can say that about this hole or hole 9. And then there's some of the other par 3 holes that are downhill. The other 2 tees on this on hole 18 have their own lines to the basket or to the fairway. The middle tee starts off to the left side, and really we want players, we're forcing players to throw it to the right and make the turn. There is a left-hand route, but it's very thick, and if you miss a very small gap, you're going to be regretting it. And then the white tee, the front tee over here on the right-hand side, it has the best line of all 3 of the shots. I think it's almost, if you can look from there, almost straight down across the hump all the way to the green.
Yeah, you have to turn it a little bit, but you can get pretty far down the fairway from that white tee. But this is quite a long par 4. It's a good finishing hole in that you'll get a lot of score separation on it, at least we hope. So even if you do make it a good distance down the fairway, it's going to take a really good second shot to get to the green.
Right.
Hole 18 is a tight shot downhill for placement, followed by a much more open fairway that tightens very, very tight to the basket, where you'll need a very precise shot to get off the tee and a very precise shot to get to the basket.
It's the land that we were given to work with, and our charge from Cranberry Township was we want a championship par 72 type of course that'll challenge the best players in the world, in which we can hold an international level tournament. So we used all of 70 acres to do that. I think we stretched it out about as much as we could, and yeah, you'll get stronger by playing here.
Yeah. Well, one last thing I want to mention, hole 18, just like hole 9, brings you right back to the parking lot. So at least that cuts off a lot of the extra walking if you haven't got enough of the walking.
And that's how we played North Boundary Park back 9. Cody, this course, what is your overall opinion of this course?
Well, after the front 9, you see how many teeth this thing has, and then you play the back 9 and there's more teeth. You just keep running into more trees. It's a hard, long, exhausting course, but it's a lot of fun. You want to keep coming back to try and beat the course because it's that hard.
Absolutely. Chris, what are your thoughts on North Boundary for a sidearm player?
Sidearm, I mean, it's no different than any other course. I don't feel it plays real heavily one way or the other. I think overall, though, to get birdies out here, you need to make every shot. You can't have a lot of wiggle room. You can't make a small mistake on a lot of the holes. You have to just hit everything. Whereas maybe some other course in the area, you could still get a birdie with a tiny mistake along the way.
And Vinny, for left-hand, backhand primary player, you had some amazing shots today. Everybody did. What do you think of this course?
I love this course. I feel like a lot of the holes favor like a big lefty shot to get the farthest down the fairway, but obviously there's kicks to be had and everything, so righty or lefty doesn't really matter. I'd say the back 9's harder of the 9s, so you definitely want to score on the front.
And this course is just brutal. It is, like I said, one of the top 10 longest courses in the world. It's over 10,700 feet, they said at the grand opening, and it is all tightly wooded. So it's just a tremendous challenge here in the Pittsburgh area. If you're in the area, you gotta check it out.
Bring water.
Bring lots of water, lots of snacks, because you're gonna need them for the energy. So, all right, guys, well, that's gonna do it for our course review here at North Boundary Park on the back 9. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. We'll be happy to get to you. Also, remember to like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube.
And share it.
We always appreciate it whenever you guys do that. It really drives us. So that's going to do it for us for this week on Disc Golf Examiner Course Review. Until next time, keep banging those chains.